All right, Immaculate. So we've got this information from Navigate, this company that tells us that Oregon State, Washington State are owed $300+ million based on their estimates. They're a reputable source who works with the NFL and everybody, even Budweiser. So what does this mean? With all this money, what does this mean for the Big 12? Does this point just strictly to Washington State and Oregon State being in this conference? Does it point to everybody getting more money in the new expanded playoff format? What is the main takeaway here from what reading that you've done?
Well, the way this is all written up and set up, it pretty much defines where this money has to go. Now, should the Pac, say, lose any of those bowl deals, they might be in a pain, and that might be what's used against them. But as things stand right now, they are still in that group. They still have those bowl deals. They really only need the one deal. They only need the Rose Bowl to be maintained. And that's kind of going away in 2012 because all of these bowls are going to be part of the thing. So I don't know if they could be dropped from that. But point being, as long as they, with the 6+6 especially, can get a champion into that tournament, they have easy access to this money. Now, if all the rest of the schools are leaving before the 2024 season, as they are scheduled to, and if the conferences are all basically getting the same base pay as we saw from there, they are essentially going to get that money directed to them. Because there's a base amount that's going to each of those conferences. And then, as you saw in the one graph from Navigate, that's based upon participation and the extra amounts that they'll make for each school that takes part in it. So that goes up big time with 12. And so that's where the differences in the conferences comes in. But there is still that base amount that you get for just taking part. And as you can see, if you were to say, look at the Pac in there with the 269 at 1.7 per team, they're right there. Like everyone who has the one there of the powers, they're well over 200,000 at least there. So an average, the SEC one of 407 kind of takes it up high and raises that average a little bit higher. But these are all silly numbers anyways, right? Like whether you're getting the 269 or the 407. And with you got to remember the Pac right there, it's not going to exist like that anymore, that payout. If the Pac goes away, take that 269 and split it up between the top four. And now look at the numbers you start to get. It gets pretty silly when you start to do the per team payouts.
So the way that then on paper, based on contracts, what has been signed, sealed, written, Washington State, Oregon State are owed this money. In my head, and help me unpack this, in my head, the reason they would go to the Big 12 is ESPN says, hey, look, we need to rework this. Obviously, Washington State, Oregon State would say no, right? They wouldn't want to rework $320 million. But if there's the bonus of, hey, we'll rework this and you can have the security of being in a conference that is the Big 12. That's where I see this turning. Am I off there?
ESPN probably has the least reason to do this because they pay the CFP.
Okay.
Then the CFP distributes. So ESPN's giving them the same amount regardless. That's part of their deal. Part of the percentage payout of their overall ad money that they make. And we're going from 3 games to 11 games. You're talking about almost 4 times increase of content. There's going to be a lot more ad money to this. So when it goes to the CFP, that's when the distribution happens. And as you can see, some of these schools moving is increasing and changing the payouts that we're looking at as early as 24, not even talking 26 yet, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of them staying there, that's a short-term deal. That's the 24 and 25 years. What we have in 26, we don't really know. So what I'm saying is why I think that they could end up in the Big 12 is them leveraging that amount of money to say, get us a position in a conference that we accept, and we'll leave, we'll close the doors, shut the doors, and all that money can get distributed to everyone else.
So this would be a decision that Washington State and Oregon State have to initiate to try to get into a conference. Is that what I'm hearing? That there's not a realm in which a CFP or even an ESPN, the NCAA, somebody with a higher power comes in and says, hey, we need to make this move. We need to put you in a conference. This has to be initiated by these two schools.
I mean, some of the other conferences might actually initiate this because they're the ones who would get the payout money coming to them. If
Whoa. What you just said is if two more teams are added to the Big 12, there's a larger payout for what these schools get. Like, almost that the Big 12 would be silly not to take these two formerly Power 5 teams.
Well, not just them. In fact, the Big 12 would be doing a favor for the Big 10. The Big 12 would be doing a favor for the ACC. The Big 12 would be doing a favor for the SEC, because I don't think all of that money, all $300 million, is going to go to the Big 12. No, if I've given that impression, that's wrong. It would be dished out between the power conferences. Maybe a little bit more given to the Gs. I'm not sure. That's negotiations well above our pay grade. But yeah, that money would go to them. So it's in all of their best interest to get this done. Now, those conferences, if they really want it to happen, would probably have to make some kind of a deal with ESPN. I've talked recently with Mr. Bob Thompson. You may have heard of him. One thing he suggested was that maybe like their contracts would get extended so ESPN could get a favorable deal with like the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, maybe add a little time to the contract so they don't have to negotiate so soon. I don't know. They'd have to work something out, but they all benefit from this happening. And the Big 12 sitting there saying, yeah, sure, we'll help you out. What are you going to give us?
Well, immaculate. I want to get into what all of this means for the Big 12. Like what a time to be in the Big 12 and where this conference will be in a couple of years. Because Nathan Baumer on this show said there's a 99% chance that Washington State and Oregon State are in the Big 12. Let's get into that. What? Don't reveal it yet. Let's get into that coming up next here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.